Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Govinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Sudarshan Chakra Jiu Ki Jai Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Jai Shri Shri Nitai Gauranga Ki Jai Jai Shri Nrsimha Bhagavana Ki Jai Jai Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Jai Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Mahabhagavad Srila Gaurkishore Das Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai Vaishnav Sarvam Shri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Shri Rupa Anuga Guru Varga Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Shada Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Srila Swarup Damodar Roy Ramanandadi Gaur Parsada Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sikoho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopi Go Govardhan Dvadashavanatmaka Shri Braj Mandala Dham Ki Jai Shyama Kunda Radha Kunda Yamuna Ganga Tulsi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Harinam Sankirtana Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutaha Bada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangol Langayate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahabhatanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gaura Tishe Namaha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindai Tulsi Devyai Priyai Keshavasya Cha Krishna Bhakti Prade Devi Satyavachai Namo Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Gurudev, Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Asto Tarasata Sri Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada. Then I'm offering my same unlimited Dandavat Pranams and my Shraddha Pushpanjali at the lotus feet of my most worshipable beloved Siksha Gurudevs, Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Asto Tarasata Sri Srila, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Goswami Maharaj. And Nitya Lila Pravishta, Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Asto Tarasata Sri Srila, Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj. And I'm offering my unlimited Dandavat Pranams at the lotus feet of all of our Sri Sri Rupanuga Guru Varga. And my Dandavat Pranams to all the Vaishnavas and all the Vaishnavis. So before we begin our 3 days of Hari Katha, that's the plan, tomorrow, day after, and day after. 10th, 11th, 12th. I guess this is the last time that we'll read for the next few days from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's commentary on Sri Upadeshamrita, verse 3, the final item of activities that are favorable for bhakti. And what is it called? That final item? Sato vritte, sadhu vritti. Grammatically, sato vritte in the shloka and sadhu vritti. The behavior of saintly persons to try to follow in their footsteps, to live in that way. And actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, someday I'm going to sit down and count all the shlokas that he quoted just for this one item. So we are now, let me make sure. Okay, so the last item that we were reading was that it is necessary to give up the fault of enviousness. So he quoted about 4 shlokas in this regard. And yes, so we won't go over that. We've gone over it a couple of times. So faith, yes. So we were discussing under the topic of faith, surrender, and non-partisanship is essential. Faith, surrender, and non-partisanship. The first verse he quoted was the actual definition verse of what is faith, what is Shraddha, from Madhya Lila, chapter 22. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas Kohi Sudridha Nishchoy Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Kritahoy. What is faith? What is Shraddha? The meaning of the word Shraddha is to have the firm determination or firm faith that all obligatory activities that we have to do, here it says karma. So all the karma. You can't maintain your physical body without karma. Some activities have to be done. But what is faith is that one has completely firm determination. That's called Vishvas. In Bengali, Vishvas. And also Sudridha Nishchay. Sudridha means very firm. Sudridha. And Nishchay means certainty, definite. So, Shraddha Shabde, the word Shraddha means that one has this type of faith in what? Krishna Bhakti Koile Sarva Karma Kritahoy. That means that whatever karmas that I have to do, they are performed, they are accomplished by what? Krishna Bhakti. That's Shraddha. Firm confidence that if I do Krishna, Bhakti to Krishna, then all activities will be done. It will be accomplished. This is Bhakti, this is Shraddha. One has to have that absolute faith in Bhakti. Then,
that definition is given, but then also Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is giving Shraddha as the first step on the path of Bhakti, like a glimmer of faith.
Yes, of course, the Shraddha, here's talking about absolute, like firm conviction. Of course, in the beginning stages, one's Shraddha is komala, very soft, very pliable. But gradually it becomes what? Nishta, firm, unbreakable. So it takes time. But the dawning of Shraddha, without that, no one can do bhakti. It's not possible to enter into bhakti without the dawning of Shraddha, because the Shraddha means that I have this faith that if I do bhakti, automatically everything will be taken care of. I don't have to separately endeavor to accomplish this before I do bhakti. Right? Oh, let me accomplish this, and then I'll do bhakti. No, that's not Shraddha. Shraddha means bhakti is the what? Absolute principle in your life. You cannot live without doing bhakti. And there's no value to all of the activities that you'll do if you don't do bhakti. No value. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what the fruits that can be gained, wealth and all types of material enjoyment. No. If one is not doing bhakti to Krishna, then those are all useless. Like that. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying these are the essential. First he says faith, then he says surrender. And for surrender, we were reading in the 22nd chapter, the verse quoted here, Sharana loya kore Krishna atma samarpan, Krishna tare kore tatkale atma sam. We've read this twice now. So when a person surrenders at the lotus feet of Sri Krishna by taking shelter at the lotus feet of Sri Guru, then what happens? What does Krishna do?
Accepts one as his very own.
That's right. Krishna, tatkale, at that time, atmasama. Krishna accepts him as atmasama, like his own, like his own self. Krishna accepts. So we talked on that topic of what is Sharanagati. Remember, I was talking about Prapanna Jivanamrita, I mentioned, the book by Srila Sridhar Maharaj. Then comes the next point, the repentant abandonment of wickedness. And then we read from Chaitanya Charitamrita how that's when we got into the whole discussion. Yeah?
You mind if I ask is this still the Bhaktivinoda Thakur's
Yeah.
Samrita?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the last item,
Okay.
Sadhu Vritti.
Okay.
It's very long, actually.
Yeah.
That's why
I
we
just
didn't...
wanted to see where.
Yeah, okay.
Catch up.
Right. So Paramartha Vichar. So the other day then we discussed about who? Prakashananda Saraswati and his disciple, because this statement that he's quoting here was made by the disciple of Prakashananda Saraswati after hearing Mahaprabhu's discourse in Varanasi to all the sannyasis. And now that disciple was standing up. They were having another meeting, like on the next day, that yes, whatever we've heard from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is the perfect absolute truth. And he began to quote many, many different verses from Bhagavatam and various other places to prove that what Mahaprabhu was telling is the fact. And also to defeat the previous misconceptions that they had in impersonalism. And here, repentant abandonment of wickedness, that's what's being cited here, how he was saying, my spiritual discernment, my faith in Bhagavan has been destroyed by unnecessary argument. Oh, how will I attain Krishna's mercy now? What is that? Repentance. So that's being cited here. We all have things to repent. Yeah. Even if somebody is living a perfect life in this body, what about all the previous? So this is a very essential thing. That's why all of our acharyas, they repent. They write so many songs about self-condemnation and repentance and all these kind of moods. That I'm the lowest of the lowest of the low. Srila Sridhar Maharaj would say, even one of the greatest personalities in the whole gamut of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, the author of the highest literature that's ever seen the light of day, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, what is he saying about himself? That's very famous. Very, very famous. How he compares himself, that he's lower than the worm in the stool. And other things, he tells. So, that's why this is the process. That Trinada Pisuniche. I'm lower than a blade of grass. Real, genuine, not superficial, genuine. But you cannot fake that, can you? Can you act like that? Yes, I'm lower than a blade of grass. No, that has to develop within the heart. But it will come if someone is sincerely under the guidance of Guru and following Guru Sadhu Shastra, living the life of bhakti. Definitely this will come. And one will, like Gurudev said, you'll have to weep oceans of tears. You'll have to weep oceans of tears. It will not happen without that. But that cannot be what? Imitated. Cannot be imitated. Like is a very famous quote of Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj. I'm opening up a crying school. A crying school. I'm opening up. Like his temple in Bhubaneswar. Even Prabhupada, I think that one quote when he brought the devotees, the very first devotees, and he's bringing them to Radha Kunda Govardhana. Oh, Prabhupada, so what are we going to do here? And he said, we are going to cry for Krishna. But there are many persons who also show bhata crying for Krishna. the Sahajiyas especially. That's intolerable to the pure Vaishnavas. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Vidhim Vina Aikantika Harer Bhaktir Utpatai Vakalpate. That famous shloka quoted in Hari Bhakti Vilas. If someone is showing, they are demonstrating. Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Aikantike Harer Bhaktir. What does Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir mean? It means one-pointed exclusive bhakti to Hari. That's a good thing. Is that not a good thing? To be Aikantiki, one-pointed, Harer Bhaktir, in Hari Bhakti. But in this verse, Rupa Goswami, he has told here that if this Aikantiki Bhakti is not supported by the Shrutis, Smritis, Pancharatra, then what is it? Is it actually Aikantiki Bhakti? No. It becomes Utpatai Eva Kalpate. It becomes, Prabhupada translated that as disturbance. Disturbance. It also means complete deviation on the path. Outwardly, see, there are so many persons, especially in India, so many different apasampradayas, and they proclaim, oh, we are Rasik Vaishnavas. We don't have to perform the activities of neophytes. We have spontaneous devotion for Krishna. But they don't follow even the 4 regulative principles. They engage themselves in sinful activity. There's a name for the general category of persons, Prakrita Sahajya. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he wrote a book. It's called, what? Oh.
Maybe the Bhakti.
It's called,
1,000 warnings against.
No, there's 100 deviations of Prakrita Ras. That's right. Prakrita Ras Shata Dushani. So Shata means 100 and Dushani means false. So Prakrita Ras Shata Dushani. The 100 faults of Prakrita Ras. And it's very interesting. It's when you read the Bengali verses, he keeps repeating a line again and again on each verse, all throughout the whole 100, saying, this can never be real Ras. This can never be real Ras. This can never be real Ras. And he gives all these different examples, 100 different examples. Very worthy of studying. So, the next point is indifference to materiality. Indifference to materiality is always necessary. The mood of indifference. So here he's quoting from Antya-lila, chapter 3. Nirapeksha nahile, dharma na jaya rakshane. Here he's saying one cannot protect dharma without becoming indifferent. Without becoming indifferent. We won't go into that. The next point is, it is appropriate to be afraid of committing Vaishnava aparadh. Is that appropriate? To have fear of committing Vaishnava aparadh? Is that a positive quality? Yes. Here he's quoting also from Antya-lila chapter 3. Mahantera apamana jay desha grame hoy Eka janar doshe sab gram ujadoi. As a result of one person's offense alone, the country or place where Vaishnavas are offended is destroyed. As a result of one person's offense. This is from Antya Lila chapter 3. 1 second, I'm just going to check this. 3 verse 23. Okay. 164. Antya Lila chapter 3, verse 164. This is from the chapter of the glories of Haridas Thakur. So we'll go to verse 164. Whoa. So this is the story of Ram Chandra Khan. Do you remember? Ram Chandra Khan? Who did he offend? Huh? Yes. So now, when Lord Nityananda returned to Bengal to preach the cult of bhakti, the love of Godhead, he began touring all over the country for two purposes: to spread the cult of bhakti and to defeat and subdue the atheists. Lord Nityananda, the most dedicated devotee of the Lord, moved throughout the country. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Govinda Jiv Ki Jai. So for what two purposes did Lord Nityananda move throughout the country? To spread the cult of bhakti and to defeat and subdue the atheists. Yes, and Prabhupada, who was Nityananda Shakti Avesh, he also had to defeat and subdue the atheists. All of our acharyas have to do that in the line of Lord Nityananda. So, Lord Nityananda, who is omniscient, because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he came to the house of Ramachandra Khan and he sat down on the altar of the Durga Mandap. And when the Durga Mandap and the courtyard became filled with crowds of men, then Ramachandra Khan, who was inside the house, sent his servant to Lord Nityananda. The servant informed Lord Nityananda, "My dear sir, Ramachandra Khan has sent me to accommodate you in some common man's house. You might go to the house of a milkman, for the cowshed is spacious, whereas the space here in the Durga Mandap is insufficient, because you have many followers with you." When Nityananda Prabhu heard this order from the servant of Ramchandra Khan, he became very angry. And he came out. In other words, get out of my house. Go to that milkman's house over there. Right? Then he became angry. He came out. Then laughing very loudly, he spoke as follows. Ramchandra Khan has spoken rightly. This place is unfit for me. It is fit for cow-killing meat eaters. And having said this, Lord Nityananda stood up and he left in an angry mood. To chastise Ramchandra Khan, he did not even stay in that village. Ramchandra Khan ordered the servant to dig up the dirt in the place where Nityananda Prabhu had sat. Can you imagine? to purify the Durga Mandap temple. And the courtyard, Ramachandra Khan sprinkled and smeared it with water mixed with cow dung. But still his mind was unsatisfied. Ramachandra Khan's business was questionable, for he tried to avoid paying income tax to the government. Therefore, the government's Minister of Finance was angry and came to his residence. The Muslim minister made his residence in the Durga Mandap of Ramchandra Khan. He killed the cow and cooked the meat at that very place. Then he arrested Ramchandra Khan along with his wife and sons. Then he continuously plundered the house and the village for 3 days. In that very room, he cooked the flesh of a cow for 3 consecutive days. Then the next day he left, accompanied by his followers. The Muslim minister took away Ramchandra Khan's position, wealth, and followers. For many days the village remained deserted. Wherever an advanced devotee is insulted for one man's fault, the entire town or place is afflicted. That's the verse that we read in this context. So after that, it's describing how Haridas Thakur walked until he came to the village known as Chandpur. There he stayed at the house of Balaram Acharya. Yeah, so that's the context. That's the context. Wherever an advanced devotee is insulted, for one man's fault, the entire town or place is afflicted. And this is what Gurudev pointed out. Did he not? Gurudev pointed this out many times in regards to what was taking place in a particular institution that had done tremendous Maha Vaishnava Parad, not only to him, but to other great personalities. And for that reason, it is not possible for Bhakti Devi to come. So, now, it is the nature of sadhus to be merciful to the fallen. This verse, I skipped a little. Now, the next point is, it is imperative to forgive. In the path of bhakti, it is imperative to forgive. Bhakta svabhav agya dosh kshama kori. Kshama kori means forgiveness. So it is the nature of a bhakta svabhav, to forgive the faults of who? Agya. Ignorant persons. And that's what Gurudev did he not? They are ignorant. I only see them as my children. Just like mother whose child is passing stool on her lap. She does not become angry with the child. I see them in that way. But does Krishna, does Bhakti Devi see them in that way? No, they will be judged according to the degree of their enviousness. According to their degree, they will be judged. Gurudev told. He said, some persons may have been misled by certain leaders and their agya, but they'll have to still undergo punishment, but not as severe as those who have actual hatred. It's like Ramachandra Khan. Can you imagine? Lord Nityananda, the root of all Guru Tattva, the Supreme Lord himself, the most merciful avatar, and he's thinking the absolute opposite of him. Oh, I have to wash the place and purify the place where he sat. Can you imagine? This is how to what extent Vaishnava Aparad goes. Anyone should read, everyone should read the book that has been written by Srila Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj, The Heart of Krishna. It is all story after story from Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Bhagavad, Chaitanya Charitamrita of this topic of Vaishnava Parad. So, but it is imperative to forgive. This is the nature of the devotees, is to forgive the faults of the agya, of the ignorant persons. Then the next verse is also quoted from Antya-lila chapter 3. This is all from the Haridas Thakur chapter. Dine doya kore e sadhu swabhav hoy. It is the nature of sadhus, sadhu swabhav, to be merciful to the fallen. Dine. To the fallen. Dine doya kore. To give doya, give mercy to the fallen. It is the sadhu swabhav. Then, it is the nature of sadhus. Then the next sloka is saying, Prabhu Bole, Mahaprabhu said, O Brahmana, you should give up all kinds of pride and perform Krishna bhajan. Prabhu Bole, Viprasab Damba Parihari. Damba means pride. Parihari means give up. O Vipra, give up all damba, all pride. Bhaja Giya Krishna, Sarva Bhute Doya Kori. Just give up all pride and then just perform Krishna bhajan. Bhaja Giya Krishna. Next point is, it is essential to follow the principles oneself, preach to others, and honor the Vaishnavas. Here are 3 different points being made. One should follow the principles oneself, one should preach to others, and honor the Vaishnavas. It is the duty of every sadhak to first practice bhakti himself and then preach it. Here's the famous verse that Mahaprabhu told to Haridas Thakur. Achar prachar namer karaho dui karja tumi sarva guru tumi jagater arya. Mahaprabhu glorified Haridas Thakur. He said, Oh Haridas, you are practicing and preaching both. Achar, prachar. Achar means practicing and prachar means preaching. Namer karaho dui karya. You are doing both of these. So therefore, tumi sarva guru. You are the most exalted in this world. Jagater Arya, and you are the spiritual master for the whole world. Sarva guru. Tumi sarva guru. You are the guru of all. And Jagater Arya, most exalted in this world. It is imperative to maintain moral conduct. Antya-lila chapter 4. Tatapi bhakta swabhav maryada rakshana. You see, in all these verses, there you have these terms being repeated again and again. Bhakta swabhav, the nature of a bhakta. One must have this swabhav, this nature of a bhakta. So, Maryada palana hoy sadur bhushana. So now he's telling, yet it is the nature of devotees to maintain proper religious and moral conduct. Maryada. Maryada. You know the term Maryada?
Following proper moral standards, right?
Yes. Yes. Can say like the system of proper behavior and etiquette, right? And moral conduct is the term here. Maryada palana. A devotee It is the nature of devotees to maintain proper religious and moral conduct, which is like an ornament. Sadhura bhushana. It is like an ornament for them. This was spoken by Mahaprabhu to Sanatana Goswami. Because Sanatana Goswami was in Jagannath Puri, and he was avoiding going on the same pathway as the pujaris who would go from the Puri temple to the ocean, bathe, and then come back. Right? So Sanatana Goswami was considering himself so fallen and contaminated, and actually what had happened was when Sanatana Goswami came to Puri, going through the jungles, he picked up some kind of bacterial infection.
Kind of dirty water.
Yeah, by drinking the dirty water, right. And then he got these oozing sores all over his body. When Mahaprabhu came, when he came to Mahaprabhu in Puri, Mahaprabhu saw Sanatana, he embraced Sanatana. And Sanatana felt very bad because this pus was oozing onto the body of Mahaprabhu. Anyway, that's a whole story of how Mahaprabhu told him, I consider your body completely pure and transcendental. Right? So that was one incident. But while he was there in Puri, another thing arose, that he felt himself to be so fallen that he did not want to go on the same pathway as the pujaris of Jagannath, because if even like the sand as he's walking, a piece of sand or something that had touched his body went onto the bodies of the pujaris, he considered himself that now they become contaminated because I'm such a fallen person. So therefore, he avoided going on the same pathway. Now that pathway had trees lining it, and it had shade, and it was very, very hot. There was a very intense hot sun. So he went on another pathway that actually was like burning hot sand, and his feet became burnt, and they got these blisters and heavy sores. And then Mahaprabhu, he addressed him and said, why are you going that way? And then he explained like that. He explained, oh, because I'm so fallen, I don't want that anything will touch the pujaris. And then Mahaprabhu glorified him in this way. He says, yes, this is the nature of the bhaktas. Maryada Rakshana. You are like the perfect example of Maryada. Religious, proper religious and moral conduct. And this is really the sadhu bhushana, the decoration. Bhushana means like ornaments and decoration. This is the decoration of the sadhu. Jai Shri Shri Radha Ki Jai. Next point is, it is necessary to regard Vaishnavas as being situated on the transcendental platform. What is it necessary to do? To regard the Vaishnavas as being what?
Situated on a transcendental platform.
Yes, it means you don't see them with mundane eyes, right? That he's like ordinary human being? No. So here's Mahaprabhu's instruction, Antya Lila 4, again, the same chapter. Prabhu kohe Vaishnav deha prakrita kabunoi. Oh, Prabhu kohe. The Lord said, Vaishnava deha, the body of a Vaishnava, prakrita kabunoi, is never ever prakrita. Is never ordinary, mundane. The body of a Vaishnava, never. Aprakrita deha bhaktir chid anandamoy. Srimad Mahaprabhu said the body of a Vaishnava is never material. It is transcendental and full of spiritual bliss. Chid ananda moy. Chid ananda means transcendental chit ananda, Shakti, like Krishna. Sachid ananda. So the body of a Vaishnava is never material. So, prakrita kabunoi. Now, the next section is the duty of everyone. The duty of everyone is to give up sense objects, prestige, and gossip, and serve Bhagavan. The duty of everyone is to give up what? Sense objects, prestige, and gossip. And to do what? Serve Bhagavan. So, it is essential to conclude all of one's material activities, to conclude them, all of one's material activities, and engage oneself in worship in solitude, nirjan bhajan. So here is the, again, same chapter, chapter 4, until Lila. This is about Rupa Goswami. Eka vatsar Rupa Gosayar Gaude Vilamba Hoilo Kutumbera Stiti Artha Vibhag Kori Dilo Gaude J Artha Chilo Taha Anaila Kutumba Brahmana Devalaye Bati Dila Sab Mana Katha Gosai Kori Nirvahan Nischinta Hoya Shigra Aila Vrindavan. So, before coming to Vrindavan, Sri Rupa Goswami distributed among his family members, the Brahmins and temples, all the wealth he had accumulated. And after attending to and concluding these concerns, he quickly became free from anxiety, and he came to Vrindavan. Why did he become free from anxiety? Because he followed what is told here. It is essential to conclude all one's material activities and engage oneself in the worship in solitude, in Nirjan Bhajan. That's how the Goswamis lived in Vrindavan. But they gave up everything. Right? Chapva Turnamashesha Mandalapati Shrenim Sada Tuchavat Budva Dina Ganesha Ko Kurunaya Kopina Kantashrito Gopi Bhava Rasam Ritab Dilahari Kalola Magno Mahur Bande Rupa Sanatano Raguyago Sri Jiva Gopalako. So they showed the example. They did this Nirjan Bhajan. But yet we also have the example of Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur being very, very strict about not allowing his disciples to try to go off and do solitary bhajan. Is that a contradiction? What's going on here?
Well, to do bhajan within the company of devotees, within the association of Vaishnavas, is solitary from the material world, but is uplifting for the practitioner.
Yes. Yes. But all the 6 Goswamis, they were doing absolutely alone. They were in the forest. Terakadamba, Rupa Goswami's place. No one was around. No one. They were not living in the temple. They were doing on their own absolutely solitary bhajan. And that was Mahaprabhu's, also his order to them. And then they were also engaging in writing their books. Yes. So how is this apparent contradiction to be settled?
Didn't they have association with one another from at least time to time?
Well, that's true, from time to time. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would not allow his disciples to go off on their own.
It's a matter of qualification.
Certainly it's a matter of qualification. There's no doubt about that. It's not that any neophyte devotee can just say, now I'm going to build my hut in the forest. And I'm going to do solitary bhajan. Why did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur not approve that?
He said the mind of that practitioner will simply be absorbed in material thoughts, and of both sense gratification and prestige.
That's true. That's what he told. But especially because he was the Acharya and he has a mission to preach the message of Mahaprabhu. And therefore, he restricted his disciples, even though they were very qualified. And at certain stages, some of them did do Nirjan Bhajan. After the disappearance of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada, Srila Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, he withdrew, did Nirjan Bhajan for some time. Our Gurudev, although he didn't go off all the time, but he also went to Govardhan, the famous journey of Gurudev, who talked about it himself and told about his experience of actually leaving the mutt, which appeared to be contradictory to the instructions of his Gurudev, Param Gurudev Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj. And then he went to Govardhan, and when he first arrived in Govardhan, he brought with him only two things, his Japamala and Chaitanya Charitamrita. And when he first came, he came to Manasi Ganga, and then while he was there, and he was paying his obeisances, and we cannot imagine his bhavs, his moods. But one man approached him. Oh, have you arranged for your prasadam? No? Oh, you should come. And he brought him to his house, fed him prasadam, said, you should stay here. You should remain here. And Gurudev stayed something like 1 month. He was there alone. And every day doing Govardhan Parikrama, Gurudev said, I was simply doing Govardhan Parikrama, chanting 1 lakh, 2 lakhs, and reading Chaitanya Charitamrita and weeping. And then his Gurudev came from Bengal and settled. There was some dispute in the mutt, and Gurudev had left the mutt because I have not come for this. But Param Gurudev brought him back like this. That is the place where Gurudev established his Govardhan Giriraj, Giridhari Gaudiya Mat. Giridhari Gaudiya Mat. That's his actual place of bhajan. See? So when there is qualification, then the disciple will do according to his internal bhavs, but he will never be in disobedience to Guru. Even Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was restricted by Gorkishore Das Babaji, you should not go to Calcutta. Calcutta is the place of Kali. But he understood the deep meaning of his instructions, to save all the jivas. And he went there to Calcutta, established his little first residence there, and began to preach. And then established Gaudiya Mat and worldwide preaching mission. So the internal moods have to be understood. Guru will restrict one, but then he'll order another to do. Even Srila Sridhar Maharaj, I told the story, I'll just end with this. Srila Sridhar Maharaj, he had a doubt after the disappearance of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He had a doubt about what to do, because his internal moods were so much inclined toward doing deep, deep solitary bhajan. It was his nature. But he knew that his Guru Maharaj was not in approval of this. And his Guru Maharaj did not want to give the permission for that. So then he began to think to himself, I'm feeling so much inclined to just stay in Navadvip Dham and take shelter of Navadvip Dham and do my bhajan. So in order to do that, I'll have to get the permission of the Dham Ishwara, which is who? Sri Nityananda Prabhu. So Srila Sridhar Maharaj then told the story how he journeyed to Ekachakra, the birthplace of Lord Nityananda, and he was paying his obeisances in the temple at that time, full dandavats and begging for his mercy. Then a voice came, he said, not outwardly, but in an internal voice came like a thunderbolt. And the voice told him, you are coming to pray for the mercy, but you do not want to give out the mercy. Like a thunderbolt in his heart. That was the answer to his prayer, Lord Nityananda. Okay, then he understood, I'll have to make a compromise between my internal moods and the order of my Guru Maharaj, and that compromise became Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mutt. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj told, this is when my heart seva began. And for the whole rest of his life, he was there, but then coming and going for preaching periodically, coming to Calcutta especially, living with our Srila Prabhupada in his residence for 10, 11 years, having incredible, deep discussions with our Srila Prabhupada, which later on Srila Prabhupada admitted and said, Krishna liked him to prepare me. So the Mahabhagavad Vaishnavas have different natures. Srila Sridhar Maharaj also told that this is depending on Krishna, on Krishna's will. Who will preach extensively? Who will do that kind of seva? And it is not that we can see that here is a Goshtianandi who takes bliss in preaching, and here's a Bhajananandi, or there's another word for that, I forget, Viviktanandi. And they have the nature of solitary bhajan. Srila Sridhar Maharaj explains in his first book, Search for Sri Krishna, he said that this is Krishna's will. Who will be empowered? Who will do this seva? You cannot say, oh, he's a Goshtianandi and he's spread this throughout the whole world, but this other Vaishnava, he's only doing bhajan. You cannot judge from that. Why? Because Krishna picks who is going to do this seva and that seva. They're actually the same. Goshtianandi, Bhajananandi are both on the highest level. That's what Srila Sridhar Maharaj says. But Krishna chooses. And then he used the example of Rup Sanatan and the 6 Goswamis, how they didn't extensively mix with the general population. Very, very little. They mixed with the general population, but they gave the Rasa Shastras. Okay? So that's how we can a little bit reconcile these apparently contradictory instructions from the Acharyas. Gaur Premanandi, Jai Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki Jai, Srila Goswami Pad ki Jai, Srila Deshamritam ki Jai.